Come in, Murat. Just stand here. Good morning, Canberra Historical Society. It's lovely to be with you today. I have a presenter for you, and he's going to be speaking about the European Union, its position in Europe, and his name is Mustafa Murat Yurtbilir. So Murat, if you'll just bear with me for a minute and just step over here and we can start the computer. Just have to wait until it boots up and then you can stick it. So it all starts up on this board here. Just initialising. Now, just while we're waiting for this to boot up, the way it will be presented today is that Murat will speak to you all for about 20 minutes, and then I noticed that some of you have a notebook and look as though you're ready to listen and take some notes. And at the end of the presentation, if you would mind saving your questions until the end, and then I know that Murat is very happy to answer any of the questions that you have. It's technology, it takes a while to do. Did you have any trouble getting into it? I'm glad our public transport system here in Canberra is working well for you, Murat. Now, in a minute, when the window starts up, there's a USB 2 ports you can use on either of these. And then it's just like using your desktop computer like you do at work, so to get up your presentation. Just call on me, I'll be sitting here if you need any help. Your device is installed.
So today we will talk about the development of the European Union idea, the idea of union. But first I want to thank you to coming here and listening to me and sharing this lovely day in Canberra with me. Development of the European Union idea, in fact, is not the true title here. In fact, it is the idea of Europe. What is Europe? Were there any other unions or ideas of union or conceptualizations of Europe in the past? We'll talk about this. So where does Europe come? So they are always just looking at this Tower of Babel. It's an old legend, as some kind of mythical thing. You know the story. They are just about to build a tower to reach the God, or somebody more secular versions say that to reach the ideal, to reach the perfect, to reach the best. They are just building, the people of Babel, building a tower, and on the top they are demanding to find the idol. But then the God just makes them to speak different languages, to have different cultures, and it ends up with the struggle amongst them, and the tower just finished here, cannot reach to the God. So they are just seemingly, in many sources, you can see that the European Union idea is very similar to this. A lot of people, a lot of cultures, despite sharing a common history, a common understanding of faith, different from Asia or Africa, are trying to build some mythological thing, in fact. So it is some understanding of this. So what is Europe? Of course, we can understand Europe in myths and legends. We can understand Europe as a geography. We can understand as a culture and or civilization, and also a legal and political system. Legal and political system version is the last version, especially when we talk about the legal thing. We can just take from Roman Empire, the Roman law, setting the ground of this European legal system, and the political system. Only the common political system came after the European Union, in fact, for the Europe. But the Europe as a culture, Europe as a geography, and European myths are ancient, especially European myths and legends are very ancient. In ancient texts, the first text the Europe appeared first was some mythical and legendary things. Europa was the goddess name. It was sister of Asia and Africa in the ancient Greek mythology, and then Zeus fall in with this Europa and then goes after this and looks for it. In Iliad, Europa is not the sister of Asia and Africa, not the lover of the Zeus, but daughter of the Zeus. And in some sources, Europa is seen as some kind of Phoenician princess. These are the first texts where the Europa comes to the understanding of the human beings that we can see. But we can say, yeah, there may be some mythological things, there may be some kind of legend things, there may be Zeus falling in love with Europa or something, but why union? The first answer, the classical answer, is the economies of scale. It is related with commerce, it is related with business. As long as the size, as long as the scale of production enlarges, then the production cost decreases. So as long as the production base in Europe enlarges, which is including not only Germany, not only France, not only particular countries, but all the Europe, then production costs decreases, plus the market that these products to be marketed, to be sold, are also enlarged. It's an opportunity. But yes, size being large is important, but also efficiency is also another problem. It is another discussion in the idea of union. Yes, it is good to be big when we think about the economies of scale, but what about the efficiency? Because as long as you get larger, the efficiency of the bureaucracy, the efficiency of the political system are just decreases, so it becomes a problematic. But the Peace of Paris and the Congress of Vienna, which introduced the Concert of Europe, are the first examples of this European Union idea, because here the balance of commerce not to be broken to the free hand of the market, just some intervention is needed, some intervention from some kind of hierarchical authority, some upper authority, which is supposed to be a hierarchical superior to the states, a supranational body is the first thing to come to the mind. So, united we stand, divided we fall. He said, I wrote here a metaphysical argument, but in fact it is not the metaphysical argument. And for me, this thing, united we stand, divided we fall, has been the most important initiative to create a European Union. This is threat argument. So if there is a threat, or there is something to be seen as threat, then being united makes them more powerful. This is the Soviet threat, in fact. When you think about the establishment of the European Union, it founded in the conditions of the Cold War. And in the beginning, the idea was to establish a common and powerful Europe against the Soviet threat, the other side of the Iron Curtain. Also, the other argument, why union? Because we have a lot of commonalities culturally and historically. We share blood. These are the arguments if we think about the idea of union. So, the idea of union in the beginning, just if we don't think about the European Union, the idea of union in this continent came Crusades, Holy League, Alliance of Christendom, Consort of Europe. Many cases we can see these traces of this union. In fact, these ones are the unions also. Some unions achieved in the European continent with the way of Christianity, let's say, with the common ideology of Christianity. But later on, it came to be, after Consort of Europe, which we talked about after the Vienna Congress, it came to be understood more economical ways, more secular ways, let's say. And this European coal and steel community, which has been established in 1951, is the origin of the European Union, in fact. And if you can see, this coal and steel, remember we were talking about it is based on the threat perception. Coal and steel are the materials that makes the war, in fact. With coal and steel you are making the war. So, with the establishment of a common authority to overrule coal and steel is the basic idea of the European Union. So, in the beginning it wasn't something, a political union, an economic customs union or something. But first, in order to prevent the war, we have to put a control on coal and steel production. There are intellectual pioneers. Many philosophers talk about such union. Immanuel Kant was talking about cosmopolitanism. Cosmopolitanism means he was not talking about only European Union, he was talking about some kind of world citizenship. Max Weber's identification of this European citizenship. Napoleon, Bismarck and Hitler were after European unification, but not as some kind of cosmopolitan or European citizenship sense, but under the national sovereignty of France and Germany in the other sides, in the Bismarck and Hitler case. The famous Nietzschean Europe wants to become one, good European formula was another intellectual formula. Habermas and Husserl, which were writing in the Cold War years, were talking about not a politically united Europe, but a united Europe based on the civil society. And of course, the thing that can the ideas be the foundation of a real political and economical union? So this one is the first political movement, let's say, force association established. It was established after the First World War in 1923. They were known as Pan-European movement. It is the first time that this flag was used. Then in the European Union flag is disappeared. And then they declared in this Pan-European manifest and their 1926 Pan-European Congress, there should be a United States of Europe. The important thing is here, in their projection, there was no England in the United States of Europe. This United States of Europe was a Europe between, in the continental Europe, let's say, France, Germany, Belgium, Netherlands, and these continental countries. This one, which was established in 1926, in fact was a reply to that organization. They were saying that no union without UK. They were arguing that without the participation of the UK to the union between France, Germany and the other continental countries will not be complete. And these two, the Pan-European movement and the Association of the European Cooperation, just were the first attempts to establish some kind of political union. However, the coming of the Second World War disrupted this, and in the Second World War you can see these destructions in London, Dresden, and many other cities, were the idea to establish some kind of European Union, because the idea was to prevent such a war again. There should be no war like this. So Winston Churchill his famous speech was arguing that Germany and France should be in some kind of cooperation and United Kingdom stay outside this cooperation but support this cooperation in order to prevent a future war. So first, after this coal and steel organization, European Economic Cooperation Organization was established. This is not directed to the European Union as we understand today. This is just established for the implementation of the Marshall Plan. And today, for example, the members of this organization is larger than today's European Union. Then the Schuman Declaration is known as the base of the EU. It is a core of the EU. These are the French Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister. They were arguing that coal and steel production should be transferred to a supranational body in order to prevent another war. Especially Germany's production of steel and coal should be transferred. The time of the declaration, May 9, is known as the Day of Europe, and the European Union celebrates it as the Day of Europe. And the other thing, the 6 countries, these are the original founders of the European Union, origins of the European Union. They also argued, together with the steel and coal, arms should be under the control of a higher authority. Then they decided to establish this European Defense Community to form a European army, just over the French army, German army. But this plan was vetoed by the French Parliament at that time. So Western European Union, which replaced this afterwards, and this is just continued, but still it is not something like NATO. It is just under the shadow of NATO. So in this armed and common army thing, this Western European Union, I think is not so successful. But the Cold War and the Union in Europe is so much related because the Cold War, the threat argument, there is a threat and we should unite against this threat argument was so powerful. So NATO versus Warsaw Pact, Comecon versus European Union thing is important. So it is a economical union in the beginning and anti-war union, and this ensures some kind of rapid increase in wealth in the Western Europe. This is the first European community established with these 6 countries: Germany, France, Italy, Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg. The first thing to limit the use of coal and steel by national governments. Then the following ones are the European Economic Community and European Atomic Energy Community, limiting the use of atomic energy, coal and steel, in order to prevent the war, and also establishing some kind of economic union with these 6 countries. United Kingdom decided to establish some kind of European free trade agreement, which was in a competition with this European economic thing, which France, Germany was participating. These countries, Sweden, Austria, Norway, Portugal, Denmark, Switzerland, and UK participated. This was proved unsuccessful because some members in time decided to participate in the European economic community. And this common cultural policy was important because nearly half of the European Union budget was going this way, and it is the basis of the sword versus board discussion. The southern countries, France, Italy, Spain, in the European Union history always demanded the continuation of these agricultural supports, but the Sweden, Norway is not a member, Finland, northern countries are just wanted that agricultural support should be lifted because it's just taking all the money of the European Union. Then it just decreased after the reforms of 2011. So in Fusion Treaty, these communities, Economic Community, Coal and Steel Organization and Atom Organization were united, and the first time the European Commission and the European Council were established, which are the executive bodies of the European Union. And Customs Union. Customs Union is just removing all the boundaries and creating a larger market for these European countries. These are the previous examples of the Customs Union. German State Customs Union and Benelux, Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg Customs Union. And then this European Union, European Economic Community members established a Customs Union. So you can see that it is coming first coal, steel and atomic in order to prevent another war, and second, economic union. These three countries participated in the European Union in 1973, and it is known as the first enlargement wave. United Kingdom, Denmark and Ireland. United Kingdom has been vetoed by France. They applied many times to the European Union, but de Gaulle at that time wasn't vetoing this. After the de Gaulle era ended in France, they applied and they ended, and it had 9 members at that time. And in 1980s, there were new members. The second enlargement wave in 1971, Greece became the 10th member. And third enlargement wave came with the Spain and Portugal. Spain and Portugal, after ending of these fascist rules in these countries, applied and became the members of the European Union. So you can see it in the map, the enlargement of the European Union. Schengen Treaty is one of the big advantages that the European Union gave to the citizens. It is just removing the visa controls for the citizens in the borders. Some countries which are members of the European Union did not participate in Schengen, but some countries which are not members of the European Union participated in Schengen, meaning that, for example, Norway is not a member of the European Union, but there is no visa between European Union countries and Norway. Copenhagen criteria are the criteria that is set for the new members. There are some criteria, political, economic, and implementation of the ECU. ECU is the European Union law. So new member countries, candidate countries, should carry some criteria. Should be democracy, market economy, just budget deficit should be some certain limit, inflation should be some certain limit, some kind of criteria. And fourth enlargement wave came. This is Austria, Finland, Sweden, which is very different from the previous participation because these countries, Sweden and Finland, were richer, wealthier than the European Union average at that time. They participated basically after a referendum and for the sake of the bigger market. Austria participated because the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991. The post-Cold War, post-Second World War agreement was saying that Austria should not be in the same union with Germany. Since Germany was the member of the European Union, Austria has to wait the collapse of the Soviet Union for the participation. And Euro just initiated, which is also one of the important devices of the European unification. First, Germany, Austria, Belgium, Finland, France, and these countries that you can see participated in the Euro. In 2008, as of 2008, there were 15 countries, and it continued to enlarge. After this, some Baltic countries also participated in the Euro. Fifth enlargement wave is known as the Great Enlargement because these enlargements incorporated 10 more countries to the European Union, which is the incorporation of the Eastern Europe to the European Union. Ex-Soviet influence area countries, except Malta. All these countries, Czech, Estonia, except Cyprus also, Slovakia, Slovenia, were ex-Soviet influenced. 3 of them directly Soviet countries, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. The others were the Soviet sphere countries. And in 2007, Romania and Bulgaria participated to the European Union, and EU reached 493 million population. And last enlargement is July 1 last year, in fact. Croatia became a member and the European Union population passed 500 million, which constitutes one of the largest markets in the world, together with China, India and the United States, NAFTA, North American market, and also with the usage of euro constitutes after the United States dollar, most widely used currency. So this is going like this. More countries are waiting in the doors of the Europe. More countries are candidates, including Balkan countries, including Iceland, including Turkey, to participate in Europe. And then whether this will go some kind of union which is just overcoming to the cultural differences and able to form such kind of a union which enables the citizens more political and economical rights and freedoms. Thank you. Questions?
Yes, I have a question. Firstly, thank you very much for that very informative presentation. And I was just thinking as you were talking about the enlargement waves of in the construction of quite a large member membership of the European Union, that we've seen in history, for example, this would probably, this is something that you will know a lot about, but we've heard in history, for example, the demise of the Ottoman Empire, where it spread quite significantly throughout parts of the Mediterranean, into Egypt, into parts of Europe, and in the end, there was a demise of the Ottoman Empire. There were many reasons for that demise, but one of the things that is a serious consideration is the expansion of the empire.
More than digestive capacity.
Yes. And so it went from being a very powerful empire, commanding great wealth for Turkey in essence, or Constantinople at the time, because it expanded out commercially to many places. And I see a similar thread running through what you're talking about with the expansion of the membership into a European Union. But my question is, do you think that expanding and adding countries to a European Union is a beneficial thing for the unification of Europe, or is it to its detriment, and that it becomes too unwieldy to manage in modern times, commercially as well as legally, and that it's actually to its detriment to keep on adding member countries to the Union?
Well, first I want to say that this ideology of European Union is different from empires like Ottoman Empire or British Empire or other empires, because this European Union argument is coming with some kind of political liberties, political rights, enlargement of the democracy, such kind of things. The empire ideology was just domination ideology, let's say, a center. It is a big discussion, but what I can say, this thing, the digestive capacity, the capacity of enlargement is also a big topic in the European Union. How and to where to enlarge. So where is the limit of this enlargement? In the South, the European Union set the boundaries. Morocco just rejected to application. So this means that Mediterranean Sea is the southern part. In the east, I think Russia is the border, because I don't think that Russia will be any part of, and also Turkey. Despite Turkey is a candidate country, this Turkey and Russia is the borders. Except this, I think the European Union will try to incorporate Western Balkan countries, some Western, Serbia, Montenegro, Albania, Bosnia-Herzegovina. They are in the way of this process. But these countries are small, economically and as population are small countries, and which will not be hard for European Union to incorporate these countries to the European Union. But Turkey is a big country, or Russia, these countries are historically and culturally different from the European Union idea, and they are bigger countries as population. So I think this is the borders of the European Union. And after this big enlargement, 10 countries, and afterwards Romania and Bulgaria, the new countries of Western Balkans will not be posing so much threat for the European Union, I think. The threat for the European Union is the economic crisis. With the economic crisis, the countries, remember the last European Union election just 1 week before, the countries were voting for right parties, ultra-right parties, which are complaining about the migrants, for example, not only migrants outside Europe, the migrants coming from Bulgaria, Romania, the other European Union countries. This is a problem, rise of ultra-right, the rise of fascist parties, and also how to cope the economic crisis. And the last one is the, United Kingdom is discussing to leave the European Union. This is also another thing. So we'll see these things, I think, so, the response of the European Union.
Thank you, Murat. Now, that's the end of Murat's presentation, so I'll let you go. And thank you very much for coming today. And Murat can be contacted via email, and on our government site you can go to the the site that does these citizens events, and you will be able to find his email address so that he can be contacted, and you can contact him via that. So thank you very much for attending. I will ask you if you would mind filling out this sheet. So take a seat and fill in yours.
I'm a student. Thank you very much. And you'll notice that I haven't filled everything in except the comments, because what I'll do is I will upload this onto the eLearn system that you can access, and I will write some detailed comments here, but overall it was content. So if you would mind just filling in student signature and your name here. Thank you. And just hold the student number here. Thank you very much. So don't forget to go onto the eLearn site, and I will post this up for you with more detail. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming today. And just